What Israel has been trying to do pretty much since October 7 really is to continue something that Israel's wanted to do for a very long time. What I mean by that is that Israel is currently making Gaza uninhabitable. It's clear that anyone who can see what's happening in Gaza, vast parts of Gaza, is unlivable. There's no infrastructure, there's no homes, there's no hospitals, there's no schools. But what many in the Israeli military and political elites want is something that many Israelis have wanted since 1948, which is to find an opportunity, a moment, a war, something that is significant, a rupture that allows Israel to try to remove as many Palestinians as possible from Israel itself, but also Palestine. Now, right now, we're talking about Gaza, and obviously in 1948 and 1967, there was mass displacement and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Fast forward to October 7, 2023, and now, so early 24, so roughly 3 months. And Israel has been not just reaching out to Arab countries, but also other nations further afield, including Congo, to try to potentially take Palestinians. Now, so far as we're aware, no one's really said yes to this, or nothing significant, maybe a few people here and there. But the plan that the Israeli government has put forward, and to be honest, when they put forward a plan, it's really not entirely clear it's a credible plan, because the Israeli government is divided. The government may fall this year, and different plans might come up. The current plan, if you can call it that, is essentially to bring in some kind of discredited, corrupt Palestinian authority who currently run the West Bank, unbelievably unpopular with Palestinians, and to be essentially Israel's colonial police force. And that will not be accepted by Palestinians in Gaza, as it's not accepted by Palestinians in the West Bank. So it's a disastrous plan, and I think at the moment Israel is so off the leash that no one really seems willing or open to stop what they're doing, including the US, that I fear that by the end of this war, whenever that happens, presumably in the coming 6 or 12 months, there'll be nothing left. Doesn't mean everyone in Gaza will be killed. I mean that if there's no infrastructure left at all, what are Palestinians supposed to do? Like, that is the real disturbing question that I have. I wish I believed that was true. I mean, I don't know, but when we talk about the US restraining Israel, I wonder what that means. How are they restrained? I mean, Israel has killed 25 to 30,000 Palestinians. America is sending weapons to Israel consistently since October 7. So yes, at the moment, America says on the record that they do not support the mass displacement of people, Palestinians, from Gaza, and yet they're doing everything in their power to support Israel in its mass destruction campaign in Gaza. So at the end of the day, if Gaza is made uninhabitable, where are the people supposed to go? There's 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza. Then where are they supposed to live? They're supposed to live in tent cities on Israel's part, that other nations will take them in because they feel sorry for them, because Israel is bribing them. Because, as I document in my book, The Palestine Laboratory, over the years, Israel often sells weapons to these various nations around the world, dictatorships and democracies, in the hope that those nations will then do them a favor at the UN or elsewhere. Although Netanyahu himself is not the most extreme in his cabinet, the fact is he himself, as recently as last week, has said to his own party that we are examining, as a country, other nations who might take Palestinians. Now, it's too easy, I think, in the West to believe that this is just the call of a handful of extreme ministers. That's not true. This is coming from the top. Netanyahu is the prime minister, the most senior person in the Israeli government. So I fear that the US, like is often the case in many conflicts around the world, speaks out of both sides of its mouth. On the one hand, it says, oh, that's a terrible idea, we can't support that. While on the other hand, they're giving Israel 110% support. So I worry that, in fact, the US is not a restraint on Israel. In fact, the US is an endorser, is an amplifier of the worst, most extreme Israeli violence. The Palestinian public, I've seen no polling on this plan so far, and it only was announced recently, but I think you can be pretty confident that the vast majority of Palestinians will reject it, because essentially it's trying to rehabilitate the discredited Palestinian Authority, who the vast majority of Palestinians regard as corrupt and out of touch with their own lives. So if the Israeli, and I guess by extension American and European plan, is to bring in that discredited body then quite frankly, most Palestinians will reject it. In terms of Israeli Jews, I mean, the sad reality is, and I've been saying this for a long time, long before October 7th, but it's been made since, that Israeli society has been radicalized. And what I mean by that is that there is a sizable proportion of the population, arguably a majority, who regard Palestinians as second-class citizens, who do not regard them as deserving equal rights. And there's been polls around this for years, and including in the last 2 weeks, in late 2023, that found a majority of Israelis support the idea of Palestinians in Gaza leaving somehow, being told or helped, in inverted commas, to leave. This is the mainstream. The bloodlust, the revenge, the anger, the racism, it's so prevalent in Israeli Jewish society. And I say this as someone who's Jewish myself. I mean, I'm not an Israeli citizen. I'm an Australian and German citizen. But I am so consistently outraged and disgusted and appalled by what my fellow Jews are advocating for and pushing, which is complete dehumanization of Palestinians and against Israel's West Bank. And Israel ignored it. They just kept on building the wall. It had no real implementation. It has no real enforcement. The South African document is very compelling. It has huge amounts of evidence to show that Israel has genocidal intent. The issue, of course, is if the decision goes against Israel's way, what will Israel do? And that requires other nations, particularly the Western nations, the US especially, to put pressure on Israel to rein in its activities or stop them entirely. I'm not convinced that they will do that because America has already suggested the ICJ case is illegitimate. So what's I think important about this case is South Africa, and I document this a lot in my book. South Africa has a long history, of course, of apartheid. And during the apartheid era, South Africa and Israel were incredibly close, both diplomatically and militarily, and also ideologically. So South Africa has a real understanding and history about what Israel is doing because they themselves, when I say they, particularly the black majority population in South Africa, understand what apartheid and mass violence is. So I am obviously unclear what's going to happen with this case, but I think it's really puts pressure on the ICJ to say, will you take a stand for not just human rights, but for accountability? If Israel can essentially get away with mass murder, which is what's happening, the mass killing of civilians in a space of 3 months, some of the highest rates of civilian killings in decades, and the ICJ does not rein that in, then I think many countries around the world will regard that as giving Israel the green light to keep on going, which would be utterly disastrous for Palestinians.